This is Forge Daily with Mackenzie Barwell on the Forge Audio Network.
Welcome to this episode of Forge Daily. I'm your host, Mackenzie Barwell, checking in August 7th, 2024. I hope you enjoyed your long weekend and, of course, yesterday's episode of Behind the Beard. Today, I am joined by Steve Milton for another edition of Forge Daily, or the Mac Milty Show, depending on how you look at it. He'll share his thoughts on Forge's 2-1 loss to Valour, some standout performers on the Forge side after an undefeated July, as well as some people to watch out for on the Atletico Ottawa side, as the signature match is just around the corner this Saturday, Forge to take on Ottawa. So let's get right into today's episode. Okay, Milty, thanks for joining me. We've got some exciting stuff to talk about. One game to review and the other to preview. So we'll first start with Forge FC versus Valour and then move on to Atletico Ottawa, who they'll play this weekend at home for that signature match. So a 2-1 loss, Milty, the first time Forge conceded a game in quite a while. What did you make of that Valour game?
Yeah, you're right about quite a while. I mean, it's the entire month of July. And, as we talked last time, the weather gets warm, although it's been warm all year, but classically warm in July, Forge heats up. And, I think that's one they want back. I think they want that game back. It's at home, drop 3 at home, coming, again, 2 wins, 2 draws, and then, of course, a signature match against another type of signature match against TFC in there to punctuate July. It's one of those ones where you got to take advantage when you have it, and they didn't. But I give a lot of credit to Valour. They seem to find themselves. They do not quit. Forge was very glad to be on that new turf out in Winnipeg, and you could see that it helped them. There was a lot of great plays, a lot of lead passes that stayed in the park instead of bouncing out. I think they want that one back.
Well, interesting you talk about those lead passes. I think at times they're almost threading the needle. You look about 5 minutes in, and Coach Bobby and I talked about this yesterday and Behind the Beard. They hit the crossbar super early, and we've talked about the way those kinds of shots set the tone for the rest of the game. And Coach Bobby admitted, he said that kind of stunned us. Not only that, but the goal that they scored not long after. So could you see that?
Yeah, I could see that. I could see it for sure. And first of all, as you say, they hit that one. It's like Benni often tries to do for Hamilton, establish the tone early and drill one early and say, get ready because we're coming. And that's why I give Valour a lot of credit there. I mean, that was a highlight free kick. When we talked about it last week about Valour, who did we say they have to keep their eye on all the time? And it's Jordan Swabell. And bang, he just banked that one in. It was just outstanding.
Right. When it comes to that free kick, I don't really know how much you can do in terms of defending the actual shot. Maybe Chris was off his line just a little bit, but Coach Bobby emphasized that you can't draw that penalty in such a dangerous area to begin with. But going back to Benni, this is a guy that we've missed for the past 2 or 3 games now. He's been out with an upper body injury. How have you noticed his absence?
A bit less audaciousness up front. I mean, it's just one less. They got a lot of depth. I mean, they have an awful lot of depth. But Benni makes a big difference, and he plays. He can play different roles. And that early strike to set the tone, not strike, but shot to set the tone. It just adds another dimension to them. But you lose a player of that caliber for that long, and it makes some difference. And I don't think it's necessarily showing because they still have they have possession a lot of the time, and most games all through July they held the ball. So I don't think it's a problem, but you sure want it back. The chemistry on the field makes a difference. It just means puts extra pressure on the other players to be better so that they can maintain their spot in the starting 11, those kinds of things. So those things are all kind of ways that this club is
Well, it's just that level of flair, right, that Benni adds.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Audaciousness. I think that's the right word for it.
And, I mean, they have guys – hey, let me ask you this while we're on this because it came up a bit in the game. There's Becker again to Borges. You couldn't draw that crossing pass up for the tying goal any better. The way it curved right into him, the timing, just unstoppable by anybody else. The fact that he knew he was there, he had other options, look them off. Hit at how they left Borges unprotected, I don't know. So take all of that, put those two guys together. You talked about Benny. You talked about Nana coming on. You talked about Daniel Pata, who might be their most all-around skilled player, and Chouanier. It might be harder to be the most outstanding player on this team than it is to be the most outstanding player in the league. Like you could have them all canceling each other out.
Yes, you're right.
Because you could who's even the nominee from this team?
I think what's interesting about this is you talked about it there too, how different players cancel each other out in certain ways because their strengths are so widespread, and I think certain guys who are good in one category might not be as strong in another category, and that's kind of when you see them all even out. Kwasi Poku, that's the natural answer for Player of the Year, given the unconventional situation he was put in and what he's done with it. For example, in the game against Winnipeg, he wasn't as involved in a lot of ways. I think Valour did a good job at isolating him and kind of canceling him out of the game, and it was so abundantly clear that Kwasi Poku wasn't scoring, you know what I mean? And that's not normal for a player not to score and then that to be a conversation in the press conference after the game. In fact, I think somebody asked Bobby, are you going to be disappointed in Kwasi's performance? And it's like, no, this guy has gone above and beyond, exceeded all expectations, and then maybe the one game it's being questioned.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's because he's put up such stupid numbers. Like 8 goals and 2 assists in 10 games across all competitions there. Like that's nobody does that, I mean, and B, it's not sustainable, Mac. It's not sustainable over 28 games.
No, yeah.
You think it's not sustainable. Maybe like he's showing so far it is, to the point that, as you say afterwards, you and others were questioning how you felt about it, how Bobby felt about it, and good for Bobby for for pointing out what maybe should have been the obvious is that you're not going to score a goal every single game.
Exactly.
It just felt like it.
And to your point earlier, Milton, you talked about how Borges was even open for that header. It's the runs that Kwasi's making. And then Borges is going off the defender's shoulder and all of a sudden he's open.
Yeah, you don't see a lot of that unless you're, somebody like you who's got that kind of soccer insider knowledge. You see that right from the start. And not everybody sees that. So
exactly, it's less obvious than a goal, right? But he's still doing these very important movements.
Yeah, and he's going to need to do that against Ottawa. But so that one, okay, it's gone. The one thing about this club, it's pretty good at flushing out. They're able to put things behind them, and okay, on to the next one. And they showed that against Montreal. They've showed that, and I think they're going to show that against TFC. It's because they gave up that away goal, but that didn't seem to phase. I mean, they didn't like that, but it doesn't phase them going into the mouth of the lion, so to speak. And that said, this league is a little different. It's a little tougher. The standings are a lot tighter than maybe we might have anticipated from the start, both at the top and the bottom. These games are. You're getting to the second half of the season. Everything means something. Mm-hmm. Everything means something now. It's all about 3 points every time.
It'll be interesting to see how this game unfolds with Ottawa because they're in a similar spot in terms of maybe not coming off of a win and carrying momentum from their previous game. In fact, you said off camera before this, they've only got maybe one win since the last time that they've played Forge, and
they had the flip side, really, Mac, of the July that Hamilton had, and that they had kind of what they have too. They had a maybe one win and a draw, and you're right. Ever since when did they play Forge? It was late in. I think it was the last game of June, probably.
Just over a month ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So that one was a 4-3, a thriller of a second half. Like I'll give it the ultimate sports journalist compliment. I would have paid to watch that second half. I would have actually paid my way in to watch it, but they lost 2-1 now at home to Cavalry. There's unrest among the supporters in Ottawa right now. I'm told from some people, my spies in the Ottawa.
Your people.
My people call their people who told my people that there's some unrest there. That said, I mean, obviously it's a great supportive crowd, and it's a good soccer town. And but he lost 2-1 at home to Cavalry. I'll just run over them. Then they went to York and got clobbered the week before that, 4-1. Then 2-2 draw against Valour. Now the Valour game and the Calgary game were both symbols of something else going on in the league. Both of those teams starting to feel their own.
Mhm.
Cavalry's starting to sneak up. They're really starting to play the kind of ball that or soccer that they had expected to play. And so is Valour starting, to come on a little bit, as obviously Forge found out, much to their chagrin. And their only sort of decisive moment since they last played Forges was they beat Vancouver 3-0 in Vancouver, which was a big thing. And then they lost to the Pacific right after Forge. So that is, let me count them up, Mac. 1 win, 1 draw in their last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games. So that's a lot of lost points in there. And after starting out so well, and after making such a splash and trades, and people were calling them a super team. They've come back to the pack a little bit. What is that? Is this real? What do you think? Do you think this is a real? I don't think what we're seeing now is the real Ottawa. I really don't.
Yeah, and that's fair, Milty, because we've seen it before from this Forge side, and this was also part of my conversation yesterday in the sense that, they come out the gate hot with a very positive energy given the offseason that they had.
Mm-hmm.
And now, they're in this mid-season grind where they've been at the top of the table for the entirety. It's one of those things where I feel like it's bound to happen.
Yeah.
At the same time, other teams are starting to kind of find their groove, like Valour, for example. Forge didn't play horrible against them. They had opportunities. They created. Valour was able to hold it down and take advantage of the 2 shots that they had and finish both times. So I think it's a combination of both things, Milty. One being Ottawa can only hold first place for so long. It would be quite impressive if they made it through this stretch without being caught
Hard
by
to go to wire to wire.
Forge. Yeah. And then in addition, you have these teams starting to say, hey, we've got something to prove here, and we're not just going to hang back until the season ends.
Well, and yeah, right now there's sort of the playoff. I mean, 5 teams make the playoffs here, and you really want to be first, because then you only have to sort of win a game to get into the situation where you're champions, and there's so much on the line now compared to what there used to be. Because if you can win the regular season,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to Champions Cup. And that is massive. It's just massive what's on the line here. And I think we're really going to see it now. And now we're going to see, and I think this is where Ottawa might be okay, because they picked up veteran players. Now, sometimes it takes time for them to gel. Surprisingly, it did not. And those players, I think, will be able to withstand, especially there's guys like Aparicio, people like that have played in pressure situations before for Pacific, and so they've been under this kind of pressure. Atletico themselves, being in a championship a couple of years ago in a championship game, so those things should start to show, because the pressure now, because of what's on the line and how close teams are, is more than it's probably ever been in this league at this point in time. As you head into as we get deeper into the second half, every game is going to mean something now. Every lost point is something you have to overcome psychologically.
Yeah, and there's a reward, right? It just means so much more.
And there's a serious reward.
Yeah.
Good point.
Well, Milty, before we wrap up, I want to make sure that we highlight some of these Atletico guys, because we briefly touched on it before. Ruben Del Campo tied with Kwasi Poku for that Golden Boot lead, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, I mean, this conversation never gets old, right?
Yeah.
We've been talking about these guys since the super signing situation before the season started. So, who do you have your eye on at this point?
Well, there's always guys like Ollie Bassett. People, you forget about him, but now that he's got so much more strength around him,
right? That's so true.
It's a really, that sometimes you think, well, Ollie's only got, whatever. And I think you've always got to watch the toughness of, I don't know why Manny Aparicio didn't play last game, but 40 he leads the league in tackles, so I think you're going to have to move the ball a little more quickly against them. They're motivated. They also have confidence. They got something to prove, because they lost a championship at home, and a lot of the guys, same guys, as much as they brought in new guys, a lot of those same guys still feel that hurt every time they play against Forge, and even Singh making those passes. Didic making those passes. I think he's second in the league to Alex. I mean, Alex is the runaway passing leader in this league. He's the only person over 1,000 passes.
Alex Ashton-Johnson will never not be the passing king of the CPL. Okay,
there's another guy. If they end up allowing fewer and fewer goals as time goes on, which I expect them to, it kind of caught me by surprise that they gave up those couple to Valour there, and also a couple of other good chances. But if they end up sort of dominating defensively, and I think they've got the power to do it because they got a good rotation that they can put back there. But my point, I guess, to all that long ramble was that Didic and Singh are ranked second and fourth in the league behind an excellent passer like Alex. Yeah, and they've got him, and of course, this got two of the best tacklers around. Manny are on these two teams, Manny and Aparicio and Malik. So that's
what I was gonna say. I feel like you can draw so many parallels when it comes to these two teams in terms of the back line and their passing ability, and then also that defensive stability with Manny and maybe Malik. And then looking at the midfield, you've got like people like Noah Jensen and Kyle Becker in comparison to Ollie Bassett, or even now in Abu Sissoko. I feel like these two teams match up quite well.
That's true, and I think they both can score goals. I think both of them can give up goals in unlikely situations. Mm-hmm. Set pieces are a big thing for Ottawa against Forge, and they had that winning in the 93rd minute in the last game, just a tremendous second half. It was 4-3. I'll remind people that I think it was Kwasi that scored in the 88th minute to look. This was all in Ottawa to make it look like Forge had salvaged a point, and that made it 3-3. And then they got one in the 93rd minute on a long run that shouldn't have happened. It was a defensive breakdown. So both teams can give up goals. We have to wipe out that first game against Ottawa because it came right after the just a couple of days after the Montreal win, and they really had no chance in that game. They were completely and utterly fatigued. They had one day's complete rest, and that was, and they're coming off an incredible emotional high. But the last game, if you take that as a real type of game, that game could have gone either way. Both teams giving up goals, maybe that they shouldn't have, at times that they shouldn't have. And as you said, we forget in that game that Sissoko started the whole thing off early, with a goal, and then they also scored on their own net. So there was an own goal in there too. So there was a lot going on there. I think this is going to be really good entertainment value for it. And as you say, it's a signature game, and that's a pun on a lot of things. They're going to be signing things. Yeah. It's also, but it's a signature game to the season.
Okay, triple entendre for this signature.
Triple entendre. All right.
Oh. No, you're right, though, Milton. There's so many things to look forward to with this game, and Abu Sissoko being one of them. And then afterwards, all the guys lining up on the field and families on the pitch will look a little bit different because they'll have an opportunity to sign signatures for.
They have their own cards or something like that.
Yeah, they've got their own player cards. It was really fun last year, so I'm excited for this weekend. Maybe we should get our own table and see who wants ours.
See, really, who's going to want my card? They'll want yours.
I want yours.
You're the star around here.
I want your card. If you had a player card,
how about my old age security card? I'll just sign that for you.
Yeah. All right, Milt. We'll talk next week. Thanks for joining me.
Okay, Mac.
All right, that will wrap up today's episode. If you stuck to the end, let us know if you're interested in Milty's potential signing of his old age security card. I can't be the only one. There's no chance. Lots more to come on the audio network this week. Tomorrow, an episode of Max Access. And then Friday, I'll do another deep dive into this Atletico Forge matchup. Thank you so much for watching today, and I'll be back to check in on the audio network tomorrow.
This has been Forge Daily with Mackenzie Barwell. If you like what you heard, please like, follow, subscribe, comment, and share.
I know, I feel like the count.
You ready?
5.
4.
5 beautiful Macs. 4 beautiful.
Actually, I think we should just do that, Milty, to start our show. You can just you can just do the count.
God, a beautiful Mac. Yeah. God, I love the Muppets.
Okay, I was gonna say, is that the one with the vampire?
Yeah. Oh.
That used to scare me so
I know it scared everybody, but people love it.
Oh,
You
you
know.
just unlocked a memory I forgot I had.